Hi. So I've just been sitting here kind of like like oddly I just as in this is unlike kind of my like lead up into doing these before is that I felt I've been sitting here in silence with the pages open, just thinking about this transition. And there's kind of this like what I'm feeling right now is I'm feeling pretty like heady in a way. And coming out of the fourth hub, we've got in this hub, which is chapter 8, the fifth hub again. Oh my god. Yeah, I don't know. There's that. We've got a lot to talk about, and I think that was something where I was sitting here just contemplating that about this hub, and there's like two kind of, I guess, themes that were arising in it, which are that first of all like, I was thinking about my process of writing this chapter, and that, like so one of the things that I previously had talked to people about was, you don't necessarily need to go sequentially through the book. You don't have to go chronologically because I didn't write the book chronologically. And probably something worth noting is that this hub, for whatever reason, had been kind of a safe harbor for me. Like, I'd come and I'd work in this hub when I was getting overwhelmed by the lower hubs, like, as I often would, especially the third hub. It's interesting because the third hub was the most excruciating, even though the fourth hub was also difficult. But in this process of just having gone through this, the fourth hub was I really it was very, we'll call it evocative. It's a very strong experience for me. So there's that. And I think it's as I've come to, yeah, I don't know. I won't get into that. But so the thing is that it's interesting because it's like, one of the things about with the fourth hub is that, the Rumi quote or whatever is that, the fourth hub exists between sort of like, like beast and angel. And, it's like toiling in the like, or yeah, is kind of toiling between our like conserved qualities with other aspects of nature, and that in these upper hubs is where we're actually differentiating ourselves. So what we're doing is like what we're creating. And the fifth hub, like I was just thinking about this, like how the fifth hub really represents like our ability to create, like speak into existence, but also the how badly we want to be like have our like inner experience understood by other people. And as we'll get into it as we keep reading, is like how that notion of being completely understood by someone else is um the search for that as an ultimate validation is going to be challenging because every other person is seeing things from the context of their own lived experience. So even going back into the fourth hub about our relationship with ourself, and that in many ways that the exchange here in the fifth hub, which is to speak and be heard and to hear and to respond, that there's also that aspect that we're doing within ourselves. And that's something that I'm coming to understand more. So, okay. Sorry. I don't know. Whatever. Something like that. Okay. So, Yeah, so I'll just start. I'm gonna read from this. I normally this would be a good one to do the Prezi on because in the book, blue look how far along we are. It's like one page, like page one, like 86. We see here the breakdown where we have the learn, understand, know, and expand with the basics and themes, and then interruptions and stressors and adaptations and holding patterns, and then the techniques and exercises. And the basics is just I don't even feel like that called to read through these. I'd encourage you to have the book and just look at them yourself at this point, to familiarize yourself with it. The I mean, if you've made it this far, like definitely just, you know, yeah. Um, the one thing I think that's, I don't know, maybe worth mentioning. Yeah, honestly, for whatever reason, I just don't have any like kind of inclination to read through this. It's just not calling to me. We'll get to it. Each of the sections is represented in the reading, so I am not going to read through that like I have in previous hubs. And here's a copy of the book. That's what it looks like when it's new. Still a little, that one's still matte. So yeah, it's interesting that I don't really feel that. So this is chapter 8, and and so this reading part is page 183, I think. And this is the fifth hub, which is represented by speak. Yeah. And it's interesting because like a lot of the themes in this hub are about the dynamism between speaking and hearing, but really the inclination of the development of this hub is to create and express our truth, but that we exist like that it's like that part of this is that we're speaking and being heard and that we're hearing other people, but I guess the point of origin as I see it in this is that it's like it's our expression and our and then ultimately communication. So the opening, the sort of epigraph, I think it's called. My editor knew the word for this, of course, naturally. So is Carl Jung, which is loneliness does not come from having no people around one, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to oneself, or from holding certain views which others find inadmissible. So I'll read that again. So loneliness does not come from having no people around one, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to oneself, or from holding certain views which others find inadmissible. Yeah, it's interesting because the second part of that, which is holding certain views which others find inadmissible, it like that hadn't registered as much until right now, and I'm reading this and I'm understanding that more. So there's that. So I'm gonna I'm gonna get going here reading. So yeah. Hmm. See what comes up. So words have the power to both build and destroy. The Hebrew word abracadabra means I create as I speak. And according to the Bible, all of creation began as a single word. In the beginning was the Word. The Gospel of John says Jesus is the Word because through him all things are made. So the fifth hub is the center of our words, creation, self expression, and the collaborative aspects of communication that involve listening. Yeah, I mean, one thing I want to just kind of add in here that's just coming up is like auditory boundaries is something that we explore in this chapter. And this is something I'm right now like that's like part of my own life right now, my own considerations, is really like the idea of if is like the notion of an auditory boundary. A lot of times it's kind of, I think there's like the sense of like being, being able to handle it. I should be able to handle it, or it's like that's uncool to, like you're supposed to not flinch, no flinching kind of thing. Um, yeah, if it doesn't feel good, that it's supposed to be something where you kind of go like, yeah, like that's me being uncool or whatever, like loud sounds, music, um, even people saying things that are really like abrasive or difficult. And the idea that it's supposed to just be like, I should be cool about it versus being like, no, like upholding a boundary about it of protection. Because it's like like the boundaries as they're in like page like 25 and 26, I think, is where you'll find them, is exploring those. And I think one of the important things about, there's a lot of discussion of boundaries these days, but it's like the different levels of boundary really have to do with like developing like the deeper respect and understanding for your own like personhood and what works for you, and then like upholding that. So, the fifth hub is the center of our words, creations, self expression, and the collaborative aspects of communication that involve listening. Many paradoxes collide within the balance of talking and listening, the give and take of second hub attunement, along with the fourth hub exchange of gratitude and generosity. But there's a particularly profound paradox of third hub individuality and fourth hub belonging that's experienced when we express ourselves. We speak and create so that our individual perspective can be understood while simultaneously seeking validation and belonging. To be understood and to feel seen, we need others to hear us. The absence of people is not the singular cause of loneliness. Loneliness can be caused by either unresponsive or critical people who have no interest in what we have to say, or by people who attempt or succeed to censor you. So, although powerful, words are subject to interpretation by a listener. We hear parts of what is being communicated, and we construe other parts based on our experiences. Words are not impartial for a listener. They are subject to how they are perceived. If we're trying to make a point, it's important to be aware of the perspective and mindset of our audience, and to know there's the potential for disappointment and distress if you desire to be understood exactly as you are. When we're on the same wavelength, have similar thoughts, talking and listening can amplify who we are through the pleasure of harmonious communication. Oppositely, dissonance and discord can be unsettling and agitating because we struggle to find common ground with people of different beliefs than us. Without conscious awareness, most of what we hear moves passively through the filters of our early programming, our adaptations and belief systems, and affects what we perceive and how we understand. The ease and pleasure of communication with people who share our views is without a doubt satisfying, but if we avoid and or block out other perspectives because we find them disagreeable, we risk strengthening our limiting beliefs and biases and becoming narrow-minded. Okay, there's that. Hmm. Yeah, I think we're like later in this chapter, I'm about to sneeze. Hang tight. We're going to discuss how words themselves are, 17% of, of like the expression of communication, and that tone and the like like, and, tone modulation, physical expression, movement, fill in the other base, like, over 80%. And that being able to understand someone, our ability to understand someone is, as sort of like slightly implied here, is the more that we clear our adaptations and kind of the forcing functions of how we need to see the world, um, the more we can see other people. And that creates, like, an opportunity for, like, patience and compassion, you know, for whatever that's worth. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. So that's that for right now. This is a really interesting hub because there, certainly in my professional life, one of the things that personally I experienced and, worked with other people on was like this thing where there's kind of a compounding of second guessing yourself and then not speaking up, and this kind of sense of this kind of stuckness in the chest and like kind of like the trapezius and the shoulders and this tightness here. And some of what with the discharging and releasing here we do, this is where, journaling practice comes into play as well, is that what we're doing is, like, we're processing our, like, words and the things we wanna say, and doing it in a way that is, we're finding an outlet to express that stuff so it doesn't just get stuck inside of us, and that we validate it by expressing it, because there is a kind of an invalidation when it doesn't get spoken. So it's like something that's stuck inside of us. It isn't just the words, it's invalidation because we're like shutting ourselves up. And by shutting ourselves up, we're creating like internal dissonance. So it's like by, a lot of, like one of the themes and the stuff that we do here is that we're letting ourselves actually hear what we have to say. So even back to this thing, where it's like, look, other people aren't necessarily going to be able to totally provide that type of satisfaction, but what we can do is that we can give space for our own expression as it's arising. And this is something that's really hard to do. And this is also preparing for things that are going to be in the upper hubs that have to do with like even grander notions of being able to create and access more profound aspects of what's possible in our lives. But the first thing that we need to do is be able to hear. And the thing is, like, we're going to exercise it first by trying to hear ourselves. And so it's kind of like, we've kind of touched on this in the earlier hubs, which is that like when something's arising, one of the things about trying to comfort it and fix it right away is that we're not letting it express itself. So if there's a feeling that's like I'm hurt or I'm sad or I'm overwhelmed or I'm anxious, and if it's like as soon as it's arising, we immediately are like trying to like, either pacify it away or just do something to pass it through versus just allowing it to have an expression and be like hold the space for it, which if we don't have a lot of like second hub emotional capacity is like challenging, to hold space for strong feelings. So this is part of why being able to feel feelings like all links into this, is to just hear without interrupting, hear without like being like, I already know how to figure, like the defense, like to be able to lower the defensiveness and let what's arising, because it's usually a pretty young voice. And if we can look at it that way with like the kindness of like how we'd want to respect like a young person, a child, this like aspect of ourselves that like maybe that can help like shift the sense of like I should be tougher. I should, I should be able to handle this, or like, like having thoughts. Like this one time I was doing teaching this thing and I'd never done it before. And it was like kind of something I'd invented. And I'm sitting there and it was like, and I could feel sensation in my lower back. And so it was kind of like, honestly, it's like one of those things where I actually laid down my back and I like rocked into it. And I said, what do you want to tell me? Like, what do you have something, like tell me, like, what's, like, do you have something you want to say? And it was like this really like innocent notion that's like, I'm scared I'm going to look stupid, which is something I wouldn't allow myself to like previously to like let myself even entertain, because it was like sort of a way of like fortifying myself and being tough and like being able to be, leader and all this kind of stuff, that like that is not something that I would have. But to allow that arise and go, oh, that's okay. To say like, and then kind of like, I just talk to myself, which is like, I don't think you're going to look stupid, but if you do, it's okay. It's okay to look stupid sometimes. And also, with Parinama, one of the things that I've found is that it's actually really helpful for people when I look, kind of stupid. Like when I demonstrate having compassion and patience for myself as I'm making mistakes or not, like, or whatever, that's actually like that demonstration in of itself is like probably more useful than having everything together. So yeah, that's just something to consider. But like this is really, this is the first level of, not the first level, but this is like we're expanding the listening. And we can practice it with other people, of course. It's part of like relationships with people. But as far as Parinama is concerned, a lot, this is like this inside jobness, which is like when we can listen to ourselves and like we feel heard, then it's easier to hear other people. But if you can't even listen to yourself, if we can't even hear what we have to say, like consider the like ripple implications of like the hunger, for that. And also, I mean, almost like as evidence of the fact this is epidemic and certainly not, certainly not like a solitary thing to like embody, is how many people, like how important and meaningful it is for people to feel understood and heard. I was just having a conversation with somebody about this yesterday as it relates to like professional life, which is that if you can really get out of the way and hear somebody, it's really powerful and can be, honestly, in the wrong hands can be used to manipulate, because these needs, there are people that can clock them. There are people that can clock them, and whether it's like lizard brain stuff or whatever, who knows, but like that can clock it and then like kind of then feed the need and then become ingratiated through as a result of that. So when we take the power, when we really own these things, that we really, the strength of like our strength is amplified. Our strength is amplified, and also like in terms of the sense of a vulnerability. Like there's the idea of like being vulnerable by, sort of being open, but then there's also like vulnerabilities in terms of just having blind spots about your own needs that other folks can take advantage of. So it's like the word vulnerability, having more than just, just like be vulnerable. It's like the reason that has negative implications is because there is like, an aspect to being vulnerable that is, like it is like a boundary issue. Like is a boundary like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe you get it. Like I don't know if maybe you get that. I don't like how I said that. Um But the thing is, it's like I guess like one of the things like maybe a paradox here is that the more that we get into this process to know ourselves and to love ourselves and to be patient and listen and consciously reclaim and come back to these aspects of ourselves that just sort of like need attention and restored dynamism and expanded capacity, that like it's just like the defensiveness, like as far as like reducing vulnerability, um the defensiveness lowers because we're strong. And that, most of what, it's interesting, like most of what, in these kind of like wars, but kind of battles between people, is that it's kind of like, protections and using vulnerabilities um and trying to sense things about people to get leverage. And the way that people get leverage over us is things that we don't have full purchase and ownership of about ourselves, because it's like once there's full knowledge, it's just not that interesting to have someone point something out, that's like negative, but like the idea that it's like, um it doesn't really matter because it doesn't like hurt. It's just like, yeah, and kind of that's the thing. But anyway, so I think that's it for today. I think that's it for today. Thank you for coming along. I'm really excited to be in here in this hub, and I'm looking forward to this process, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.